to Convo Fango. Today we are joined by the star of We Need to Do Something, Sierra McCormick. Yay! Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming to hang out today.
Yeah, super happy to.
So I watched this last night. I have so many feelings, and I feel like none of which I can really talk about without spoiling anything. So
What feelings in this movie?
yeah, you were wonderful in this. I really enjoyed it. I will say that. But can you tell us kind of what it's about without spoilers?
Yeah, it's about a family that kind of has some dysfunction and they're trapped in the bathroom of their home because there's some sort of apocalyptic happening that's going on outside and they don't know what it is and they can't really see what it is. So it's kind of about them navigating the catastrophe that's outside and then also navigating the emotional catastrophe that is inside with them. So it's about those two things.
I like that. That was beautifully put. Yeah, there's a lot of catastrophe happening outside and inside. I don't know which would be worse, honestly.
Yeah, right. A lot of dysfunction.
Yeah. Would you be able to be trapped in a bathroom with your family?
Oh man. No one's asked me that yet. Probably not. Or I mean, I guess it would get kind of stressful, just a little. I
I
think
mean,
anyone
probably
would
not
probably.
as catastrophic as the movie, I'm guessing. But I
No,
mean, it's a
no.
tiny space and it's a lot.
Yeah, and it wouldn't. I don't think it would end as poorly as for me as the movie kind of does. But
Right.
uh, I think it would still be very very stressful, and it would. I would want to be out after a couple hours
Yeah.
probably.
Well, 15 minutes and I'm out. Cool.
Yeah, I'd be like, all right, bye.
Just kidding. I love you, Mom. I'll stay trapped in there
Yeah,
with you for weeks. It's fine.
yeah. Like I love you, mom, but I don't want to be trapped in a bathroom with really anybody. So
Anybody.
nothing against you.
Yeah. But I will say you guys did have a pretty decent sized bathroom, so you had that going for you,
Yeah, at least
right?
it was the master bathroom and not like the powder room.
Yeah. It was kind of like it's like an LA studio apartment on par with.
Yeah.
So, it's a good amount of
Like the
space.
bathroom's like pretty big and it had like I loved the like mid-century sort of decoration, like the
Mhm.
decor of the bathroom that they designed. And I was like, actually, like aesthetically, I'm like really enjoying this bathroom. But
It was very cute. And it's like they really made the most of like the single location. I was like, "Oh, they did it up. Like this is very
yeah,
pleasing to look at. I don't want to
no,
be stuck in there, but it's nice to look at."
it is, even when I was stuck in there, it was nice to look at. So they did a good job.
I've always been kind of a fan of like primarily single location horror. Growing up with like Twilight Zone, and that's
Yeah,
kind of like a theme often in that. Is
fun
that
chat.
yeah, I was gonna say, is it challenging as an actor, or is it kind of just the same?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think about it like that, like the single location
Mhm.
aspect being challenging. I think what was more challenging about the film, for me at least, was the just sort of unrelenting emotional sort of carnage between all
Mhm.
of the family members and sort of developing all of that tension and unpleasantness. That was challenging, and then like maintaining that for a long period of time over the course of shooting was kind of challenging, just because that's a very heavy kind of dark place to be in
Right.
for a long period of time. So maintaining that is kind of hard, but you figure out kind of ways to do that. But I don't think the single location aspect of it was very challenging. It was actually exciting for me because it reminded me more of like a play. It was kind of like
Mhm.
theater. So that was kind of appealing and also, a fun sort of interesting experience for me. I wouldn't say that was like the challenging aspect of it though, personally.
Yeah. I guess that's what I mean, because when it's kind of, I mean, I don't know, I'm not an actor, but I just feel like when it is something like a single location or a play, like it's, I mean, really the story is so dependent on the tension and the character development, but it's
Yeah.
so character focused. So I
It's
wonder then if that's challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of pressure because I'm kind of like, well, what's selling this movie is us selling this tension that's happening between everybody. So it is a little bit of some pressure, but I felt like I was in such good company with Pat and Vanessa, especially, who are both amazing performers. And so having them to sort of develop that tension with, I think, definitely helped me feel a little less challenged and a little less
Mhm.
stressed about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's probably part of it too. I'm like, when you're in it, and you're probably not thinking about that. But I imagine, like, this movie is heavy. Like it is
Yeah,
tense. I was so fucking uncomfortable for like the whole time, pretty much. Like
yeah,
I think it's very early on, and I'm like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, and then that just like ramps
yeah.
up.
Well, especially if, you can relate to having any tension, in your family or any sort of like familial, stress. Like I think this movie is very, very stressful for, people who can relate to that because this film is almost all about, family ugliness, the
Mhm.
ugliness or the horror of, other people. This very Sartre-esque sort of take on horror, which I really was drawn to, but I think that it's also what makes the film, unique and almost a little hard to watch.
Mhm. We even like not coming from, I mean, my background with my family is not anything similar to that, but I think, I mean, everyone argues and there's always tension in any kind of human relationship. So
Yeah,
even just like taking that and amplifying it to that extreme, it's just kind of
yeah,
like, ooh, like everyone can relate to that on some level. And then seeing it taken to that level, you're just like, holy shit, this is so
yeah.
uncomfortable.
And it's just like stressful to watch. Like you kind of get
Yes.
secondhand embarrassment or like tertiary cringe. You're kind of
Yes.
oh, like you know,
The energy of it was just like seeping out of the screen. And I'm just like,
yeah.
oh, this is like, whoo, okay, that's a lot.
Got the tension with a knife here. Like yeah,
Yeah. And then also, I guess watching the kids while that kind of stuff plays out too, and like just like the kids are kind of like having like the brunt of this as this is all going on, and I'm like, this is just so dysfunctional and uncomfortable on so many levels.
yeah. You're correct.
Yeah. What drew aside from that kind of stuff? Is there like a moment that drew you to this in particular? Like, were you reading the script, and was there like a certain point where you're like, I got to do this?
I mean, the good boy moment definitely was one of those. It actually gave me a startle a little bit, even reading. And I
Wow. Okay.
feel like I have a pretty high tolerance for horror related stuff. Like I've seen a lot of horror movies in my life. I'm very sort of embedded in that genre a lot of the time. And so I feel like I have a pretty high tolerance for jump scares and things like that. And even in the script reading it, that kind of gave me a startle because the way it's formatted too is very effective. And so when I read that, I was like, man, that's a crazy fucking moment. Like that is insane. Like that's going to be so much fun to shoot and see the final like product of. So that was definitely one of the aspects that made me want to sign on and do it was, that really, really awesome, fun, horrifying moment.
That was definitely horrifying. And I feel like it kind of it's like a marker, like a chapter marker. Like things flip a little bit after that
Yeah.
point.
Kind of changes how you're viewing the events that are happening outside of this bathroom.
Yes, because I feel like you maybe kind of have an idea. Or you're like thinking like,
Yeah.
okay, and then that happens, and you're like, what the fuck? Okay.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, maybe I was wrong. Like this is some other shit. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Which I guess I was maybe like a little bit of a cheat for me because I'm like, I'm obviously covering this for a horror outlet. So I'm
Yeah.
like,
There's some
have
horror things
certain,
gonna
yeah,
happen.
I'm like, something is gonna happen, something is coming. But it wasn't, that's that particular moment, I was like, oh shit, that's not what I was expecting it to happen in
Yeah,
this
I don't
sort
think
of way.
anyone really expects that moment, which is one of the beauties of it, in my opinion.
It's kind of now forever changed two things for me. I'm a good boy. That line is that those words are going to mean something
Yeah.
totally different to me now. And putting on the Ritz, I've always associated with Young Frankenstein. It's like happy, whimsical.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have different feelings about that now.
I love the way it appears in this movie, and I also love that song. Hot take, like I think that song actually slaps. That's just my opinion, but
It does, actually.
thank you. Yes, it does. It's really fun, and I love the '80s at large. So I think it captures something really fun about '80s music. But you know, I think the way it's utilized in this film is also very unique and really, really fun. And that wasn't apparent in the script at all. That was an addition later. I knew it was going to be like something, but it wasn't like written in the script as anything unique or anything. It was just like generic pop song plays, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I wonder what that's going to be. And then like the usage of that is just like really specific and funny to me.
When's the first time you got to see it with putting on the Ritz?
I think when we premiered at Tribeca, was the first time I saw it with putting on the Ritz. And so I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, what's it gonna be? And then that just kind of threw me for a loop. It definitely
Yeah.
was not what I was expecting. I was like, oh, like that's actually really funny. Like
That's awesome. It's one of those things where it's a very much a juxtaposition too, you know?
Yeah,
That's
no,
kind of the stuff that always gets me. It's such a happy like song and you're just like, I just came out of watching like some of the darkest shit I've ever seen. This song is
yeah, it's like used almost in this very eerie way, which I never
yeah,
really considered that song to be eerie before this,
right.
but now I kind of do. It's kind of eerie.
And they didn't even cheat and do that thing where they like slow it down and make it dramatic. I'm like, no, you're just playing it regularly, but like all the context around it has just made it very sinister.
Just Taco in all his glory, you know?
I also love that you know that's taco.
Yeah, duh.
I'm impressed. Amazing. Um, so you said you're a horror fan. What are some of your favorite horror movies?
Oh boy. This question always gets me.
You know what? That's not fair because I hate when people ask me that also, but I'm asking you like a jerk. All
I'll
right.
just toss out a list of ones that I've watched and enjoyed, or enjoyed,
Okay.
you know, meaning I thought they were like effective and cool, like maybe not ones that I would toss on again. But
Okay.
I love the film Martyrs. I love that one, which is kind of falling into that category. Like I think it's
Mhm.
awesome, but I don't really toss it on a whole lot. Um, as far as ones that I do kind of toss on a lot, American Psycho is definitely one of my
Nice.
favorites, which I almost view that less as horror and more as comedy, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't agree with me on that one, but I think it's more just a comedy. But I know it falls into horror, the horror sphere. Um, Another favorite is Eraserhead. That's always been one of my favorites since I was in high school. I've really, really loved that movie, and every time I get the opportunity to see it at a theater somewhere, I usually try to.
Nice.
The Thing has always been like one that I really enjoy. Same thing with um, Sleepaway Camp. Like
Mhm.
I love some of the really campy sort of '80s horror. Like that's a space I love to be in a lot of the time. I love like a lot of the like Asian horror, so like
Mhm.
Audition and Ringu and this movie called Kaiju that
Mhm.
got remade. I think that's the one that got remade as Pulse, right?
I think
Um,
so. Yeah.
yeah, I love the original of that one, and actually, the original Shutter is one that I got for Christmas one year when I was, you know, like a freshman in high school. My mom had gotten it for me for Christmas, and she was like, "Here, I saw it at Best Buy. I thought you'd like it." And I was kind of like,
Amazing.
"Oh, cool!" And then I'd never like really heard about it or anything, and then I watched it, and I was like, "That was crazy. That was amazing." Like, I really love that one. I'm trying to think of more. I'm always afraid that I'm like leaving ones out that I really love, and then I'll like remember them later and be like, oh fuck, I forgot to say, you know, The Shining or whatever.
That's inevitable, honestly. I feel like anytime anyone asks me that question, I'm like, okay, like off the top of my head, like these are some of like my favorites. And it depends on my mood too, because there's like I have different genres. I'm like, are we talking about favorites like a feel good kind of movie? Or are we talking about
Yeah,
like something that really was like the most like heinous thing I've seen in some time? Like
right. Because if you're thinking about, you know, the most heinous thing, you know, I went through a phase between the age of like 11 to like 14 where I was just trying to find the most heinous, fucked up, like human suffering possible in movies. So I watched a lot that I wouldn't necessarily consider like favorites, but like they're
right.
ones I watched and I thought were very interesting at the time, like Salo or Cannibal Holocaust, which I don't know if I would ever
Mm,
watch like either of those
yeah.
again personally, but you know they definitely achieve what they want to achieve.
Like a standout or like it had a big impact on me is a lot
Yeah,
different than like a
yeah,
favorite, you know? Like
yeah. Because I would almost consider a movie like Come and See, for example, to be like a horror movie,
Mhm.
but you know, not everyone would kind of agree with that, you know, label or placement or whatever. So it kind of becomes interesting trying to decide what's horror to me and what's maybe horror to like other people. Because to me, horror can be, you know, I think Gaspar Noé movies kind of fall into
Mhm.
horror, you know, and he's one of my favorite filmmakers, and so I love, you know, pretty much all his movies, but you know, I have a hard time sometimes when I mention those as horror movies because people are kind of like, no, it's not like a horror movie. And I'm like, I don't know, watch Irreversible and tell me that wasn't horrific.
Tell me that shit's not horrific. You can't, or you didn't see it.
Yeah, are we watching the same movies here? Like,
Right. Also, like horror in particular is such like a personal thing because I always have this thing. It's like I love horror movies. It doesn't mean they all scare me. It's very rare when a movie actually scares me and like fucks me
yeah,
up for like a couple days. So when someone
yeah,
asks me like, "Give me something scary," I'm like, Okay,
Mm,
this is scary to me. I don't know if the same shit that scares me scares you.
no, seriously, I have that problem because it's really hard, I think, just because of like all the sheer just like amount of horror movies that I watched
Mhm.
at such a young age to like actually get scared. But then I think also being an actor kind of ruins that for you a little bit too, because you're kind of too aware of what they did to achieve what you're
Yeah.
seeing on screen. I can't like help but think about like, oh, the actors probably had to look at this rig and then scream and then the blood splatter, and I'm like, oh. But like a movie like that also still gets to me even when I watch it today. I think it's the only movie that's ever genuinely scared me is The Descent. um
That one got me really, really good.
no, seriously, like I can't tell you. Like I saw that when it came out, so I was like a child. I was like
I was saying
under,
you were young,
yeah,
right?
I was like
Oh my
under
god.
10, and my mom and I watched it, and I was just like, oh my fucking god, like that movie is so goddamn scary. And I didn't watch it again until I was like 20, and I went
Mhm.
to go to a theater, and I was like, I'm an adult now. Like it'll be scary, but like I'll be able to. And literally, like when the first jump scare happens, I let out like an actual like guttural scream, like in and I never ever do that. And I was appalled. I was like, I literally just screamed like a fucking like child.
But that's
Movie
so fun
like
though.
does that. Like that movie, it'll never not scare me. Like that's the only movie that genuinely strikes fear into my heart.
Yeah, that one has stuck with me for many years. Like I was like I was scared. I mean, I wasn't even in a cave. I was like got home from the movie theater. I'm in my apartment and I'm like, it makes no sense for you to be this scared. Like they're
Right?
cave dwellers. You're not in a cave. You're not spelunking. You're fine. But I was so terrified.
No, I was like, I'll never go spelunking. I don't actually have to worry about this.
Yeah.
But then like if it's dark and I hear a weird clicky sound, I'm just like,
Yeah. And then I don't want to turn on my light because I'm like, well, that's not safe because I'm just gonna see you and then I'm gonna freak the fuck
yeah,
out.
yeah. No, that one always gets to me. So I feel like I definitely need to mention that one because that's like,
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. All right, I think that's all the time that we have. But I'm very excited for people to see this. There's so many themes. This movie is so many things, none of which I feel like I can say. So I feel like, yeah, the family is trapped in the bathroom is a very, very, very oversimplified version of what this is. So
yeah,
everyone, go and check this out. Let's
absolutely.
see. We Need to Do Something is going to be in theaters and on demand September 3rd. So check it out.